This is Robin, Program Manager at IVC, and today we are going to host a Zoom volunteer call. And so I've got 5 volunteers here who are going to talk to you about their experience of volunteering with IVC during the pandemic. As you all know, IVC, like everyone else, was kind of thrown into a new world rather abruptly and overnight. Some of the programs that we had been doing went away, and then we had to also create some new programs to kind of flow with the times. So today I want to talk about 5 very specific tasks that IVC volunteers have been doing the last 2.5 months. So before we begin, though, I'd love it if you guys could introduce yourselves and say just how long you've been doing this, and then we'll kind of jump into the meat of the program. So Howard, do you want to just kick us off?
Good morning, I'm Howard Emery, and I've had the privilege of being able to be involved in the community by helping out to volunteer with IVC for about 3 years.
Great.
And my name is Holly Mciver, and I have been a volunteer with IVC for the past 2 years and on the island for about 3.5. So it was one of the first things I got involved with when we came to Bainbridge.
Great, thanks. Ben?
Hi, I'm Ben. I've actually just been involved with IVC in the last month or two, so since the pandemic has been going.
Hi, I'm Paula Sanchez. I have been involved with IVC for 2 months. I probably would not be volunteering had there not been a pandemic, because my work takes me traveling about 60% of the time. It was a retirement plan, and it happened sooner. And I was targeting IVC all along to be a part of, because they've helped my mother-in-law, and just wanted to be a part of that organization, and now is the opportune time.
Yes, and I'm Jeff Brown. I've been volunteering about 3 years, so pre and during the pandemic. Been on the island about 22 years.
Great. Good. So we're going to start by talking about one of the new programs that came out of COVID-19, and that's our Phone Buddy program. What happened is, when everything occurred and we realized that our life as IVC was going to be very different, we also realized that we really needed to reach out to our care receivers, most of whom are elderly and or disabled, and make sure that they were okay. And we wanted to, we have a very small staff, and we knew that we wouldn't be able to do this on our own. And so we put a call out. Oh dear, I've lost Howard. We put a call out to people to see if they would be willing to be a phone buddy for the care receivers. And we got a great response, especially because we had also simultaneously had to sideline temporarily our volunteers who were 70 and older. It was out of, we were following the governor's orders. They were considered to be high risk for doing things. So all of a sudden, we had a very active 70 and older volunteer corps, and they couldn't do it anymore, but they could do the phone buddy thing. So one of the things that comes up with the phone calls is that people will say, I need groceries. And grocery shopping and going to pharmacies has been one of the things we do the most. And Holly's been doing that all along for us. It used to be, before the pandemic, we usually took people to the grocery store because they didn't drive, but they need to stay home. And so it's changed. So Holly, if you could maybe speak to that program and tell us your experience with it.
Sure. So one of the things I like to tell people just in general about IVC is that, a lot of times people say, you get more out of it than you give. And I feel like that's 100% the case with IVC. It's like one of the joys of my week to take people grocery shopping. Before this all happened, it's just, I always meet someone new. I always learn something about them and their family, and about, sometimes, a lot of times, about the history of the island and how they've been a participant in our community. And they're just lovely people, and it's fun. And they always, actually, I always tell Robin this, but they always tell me, "How old are you?" You know, they think I'm like 18, which is a compliment to me. I always assure them that I can drive. I have children of my own, and I'm well over 30. I'll leave it at that. But I just, you know, when this all happened, you know, things started changing, and my same ladies that I used to take as a pair, you know, they've needed groceries in a different way, or meals, which we're going to talk about later. But the experience, you know, the action of it has changed, but the experience hasn't. When I call now, I get their grocery list, and they kind of go through, you know, things with me. And I always sort of feel like I'm talking to my mom, and, you know, they're like, it's this brand and it's this one, and they know the box and they know what to get. And it's actually really great, because I can go and I can find exactly what they need. And I feel during this time where there's a lot of times that I don't feel very useful, frankly, I feel useful to somebody. And I also love delivering. Like, once I have the groceries, I love delivering it to them. Everybody's different, just like we've seen in general. You know, some people's responses are they would prefer not to come to the door, which we totally understand. Other people, even if even if we've advised them, I'm sure, Robin, you've advised them not to, but they come out, and that is fine with me. And I wear my mask for them, and they like to ask me, you know, what's it like? You know, what's it like in the grocery store, and what's the feel out there? And I like to try to tell them, and I think it's probably similar what we're going to hear from everyone about phone buddies and barn meals, that it's the connection, it's the talking to people. And it used to be a physical connection, and now it's a one. But I sense that everyone is really grateful, not just to receive the groceries, but just to have people at the office checking in on them, or to have me call and say, hey, here, you know, because I end up calling them to say, what's your list? I'll call you next week to confirm your list. I'll call you to let you know that I've got it and I'm on my way. And so that's 3 phone calls that they always have something to tell me. And I think, like I said, I just think it keeps me connected right now, because, you know, I'm not going to work either right now. And so it's just a neat experience, and I'm very grateful to be a part of it. And I can tell that the people that the receivers are very grateful to be a part of IVC.
Yeah, and we're grateful for you too. Thank you, Howard. You're back, yay! So if you want to jump in now with talking about the Phone Buddy program, that would be great.
So I've been involved with the Phone Buddy program since the pandemic started. And it's been a real pleasure. I have a list of people that I call once or twice a week, depending on their interest and their needs. These are all older people who need some assistance from time to time, and it's a wide range. I have a member of a married couple who has medical problems, and so they just sometimes need to just have somebody to talk to about it. I have another woman who lives in one of the senior living facilities who loves to go to the market on her own, even though she's in her mid-80s. And but once in a while, there's something that's too heavy for her to bring, and so she asks us to have IVC have that picked up for her. And then other people that it's such a pleasure to have a way of staying involved with the community and listen to people's experiences and how they're dealing with the isolation, and it's been a real opportunity to stay connected, and I miss the personal connection that we used to get when we would see people physically and take them to the doctor's office or to errands, but it is, in the present circumstances, it's a wonderful way to stay involved in the community, and I really feel that it's a blessing for me as well as hopefully for the receivers as well. So,
Yeah, it is. I think the thing that we've found with that Phone Buddy program is that the phone calls are getting a little longer because people are, they're isolated, now 2+ months into it, and they're also more comfortable with the voice at the end of the line. So yeah, and it may be even once this is all over with that we continue with it, because I think that connection, whatever it is, whether it's personally or just a voice in your ear, is important. So thanks, Howard.
So the other thing, it would be nice if we get to that point eventually, to be actually able to meet some of these people.
I know. I've had a lot of people say that they really want to meet them in person. Yeah. So very early on, like in mid-March, Helpline called us to say they were going to be doing things very differently at the food bank. Whereas before, the food bank was open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and people would go in and they'd be able to shop. They realized that was not going to happen. It was too small. And so they were going to start boxing up boxes of food for their clients. And they realized that there are some clients that would not be able to drive by and get them. And they asked if IVC would be willing to have volunteers help deliver. So we did. And so we pretty quickly put together a program, and it was a lot of hit and miss in the beginning and trying to figure out how to do this. I'd, put these orders out, and then we'd get 3 volunteers on one day, and that wasn't the way it should go. But now here we are, and we have 5 volunteers, 1 for every day of the week, who are doing this. And Ben is our Tuesday volunteer, and he stepped in at the beginning of this month and is going to do it next month, and hopefully however long we need to. So Ben, if you could tell us a little bit about your experience with doing the Helpline deliveries.
Yeah, so it actually means a little bit more to me. I think just because I worked with Helpline. I grew up here and went to the high school here on the island. And so I actually was a volunteer at Helpline through my middle school and high school years. So I have a little bit of an idea of how the place works and how important it is for community members here. So to be a part of it during such strange times feels nice, just to be giving back. So my role is basically I'll show up on Tuesdays with a list of people and number of folks in their household, and it functions kind of like a drive-through. You drive up, socially distanced, give them a list, and they pack boxes, drop them off. I wait for them to leave, and then pack up the car and take them to, I think I have 6 consistent single households or families. And it's nice because there's so many people with, either medical conditions or job obligations or just in the, range where it's risky for them to be out in the public that, need these deliveries but can't make the trip themselves. And yeah, one thing I've found is just how resilient people are in the face of such difficult times. Someone I delivered to, this older woman, I was dropping off a box for her, and I saw this sign on her porch that it was, I can't remember what birthday, somewhere in her mid-90s. Her whole community had a socially distanced birthday for her. And I think she had used some of the materials in the delivery to make like a cake and all these different things. And I just thought it was so nice that, it was this group of elderly, people living in the same sort of community, and yet they still found a way to, to celebrate and, you know, keep, keep themselves company in such difficult times. So just to be a part of that and help make sure people get what they need, even when they can't make the trip, is definitely important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is. They wouldn't get groceries otherwise. So from Helpline. Great. Thanks, Ben. So another partnership that has come out of all this is with Barn, Bainbridge Artisan Resource Network. And Barn, is that right? Network? Is that, yeah. Anyway, Barn has a commercial kitchen. And so a few of their volunteers came up with the idea of making dinners for folks. And they approached IVC to say, would you have any seniors that would be interested in receiving free dinners? And we said, yes, we would, we do. And so I'm going to let Paula explain the program. We actually came up with our lists of folks, most of whom live in the low-income senior housing on the island, and then also some interspersed folks around too. And well, yeah, Paula, I'll let you talk because the meals, I guess, are fantastic.
Well, that's what they say. Across the board, they're all delighted with them. So when this program came up, I saw it and I thought, I love a crossover, and how cool that two, very different groups, can put something like this together. I'm a supporter of Barn as well. So the other part of it that sort of interests me would be that there would be multiple people that I could deliver to. And I don't know about you guys, but when someone calls me and says, do you want to come over for dinner? I'm there. Like an opportunity to not cook, is the best thing. Somebody saying, here's something to eat. So it was very well organized. I was, again, I hadn't been out really except, for those needed supplies myself. So made it so simple. I drove over to Barn at the appropriate time. They open your car door, they put the bags into the car, and then I had my addresses. I connected with everybody in advance to find out if there was anything tricky about finding their places, because as everybody knows, the island isn't always an easy place to find, houses and apartments and stuff. But what's been cool about it is the first time I would have to say the recipients were kind of, I don't know, tentative, like, oh, a dinner? Okay. And then across the board, I think we've done it 3 times. That like enthusiasm has increased. The first call is to say, would you like to receive it again? Yes. Just a resounding yes. Oh, yes. And then I usually call them the morning of just to remind them, and they're grateful for that. I think like Holly said, to have multiple touch points is great. I'm kind of a shy person myself. So that it's been the same for, in my case, older ladies has been great, because now we've built a little connection. I kind of know what's the best time to call them to reach them. And then each time our interaction has expanded. So at first it was, more or less, just the delivery and, a brief chat at a distance. But as I've called them the second time, one woman needed a mask, and Robin helped me coordinate that for her. And what it seemed to me, not lost on me the first time, was they needed someone to talk to. They're alone, just pretty much full time because of the pandemic. So on the first call, I always ask, how are you? And I get varying responses. I'm making chicken, or, oh, did you hear that storm blow up? And then now we've expanded to even longer conversations. I step back. It's difficult to shout through a mask in that, especially when you're older, I think. I'm exhausted by it, so I know that they are. But just, carving out the time to just, sort of stand there and listen. The last round I did, one of the women who asked me a lot of questions about myself, which I thought was was fab too. It was like, oh, what's your background? What's your heritage? And again, because my travels have taken me all over the world, found out that she herself had lived in a number of places. She says, wait a minute. And she runs into her house and she comes out with a stack of pictures. And, I said to her, now I won't be able to look at those with you. And so she says, I'm going to set them on the table here and go back inside. You look at them. So they were amazing pictures, and as we were shouting back and forth into the house, I was saying, what about this one? What about this one? Lots of Alaska back in the 60s. Anyway, I said to her, what I'd really like to do and look forward to is sitting with you so that you can go through each one of those pictures with me. So, the little stories are kind of building, but the thing is again, I never had time to do this. I've lived here since 1991, always coming and going. I've probably spent as much time at SeaTac as I have on the island. And, again, Holly said it too. I'm getting more out of this, as much out of this, hopefully, as they are. But back to the meals. Anyway, a resounding yes. And as they tell me, it's not one meal, it's 3 meals. And, I hope we can keep that program going because it really, they're just completely delighted and grateful.
Yeah. No, I too hope we can continue on because it's kind of a one-off thing. So Jeff, okay. So last and certainly not least, I want to talk about the fact that we still do take folks to medical appointments. They're non-COVID related, but we have a number of care receivers who are in the midst of cancer treatments and other things that they have to see the doctor for. So Jeff, who typically before this did a lot of our more life enrichment things, has really stepped up along with a few other volunteers to transport people. So Jeff, if you want to talk about your experience.
Yes, well, I had done some medical appointments prior to the crisis, but those were typically checkups and annual physicals. These appointments are things that cannot be delayed. Things like cancer treatment, so chemotherapy, radiation, retinal surgeries where you can't delay that with the eye, and then certain, I guess, autoimmune treatments, which also cannot be delayed. So typically I'm transporting people in the IVC van. And of course, what makes these times interesting is that the care receiver and the care recipient and me are wearing masks and gloves and using antiseptics, which has the initial effect of distancing people. Mm-hmm. But it actually also brings us together because now we're in a little conspiracy to survive the world, if you will. So we're in the van together, going to Silverdale or Bremerton, completely protected, and then the conversation starts almost immediately. And the care recipient does not have to be prompted. It's as if they hadn't spoken to anyone or seen anyone in several days, which of course they probably haven't in person. So the stories just gush out, and they're usually fascinating stories about growing up, raising children, very exciting and interesting careers. And then we get to the doctor office, and there's typically no one there because the appointments have been spaced out to accommodate the few people that they're letting in. On the way back, we usually pick up where we left off on the way to the appointment, and I learn even more about the care recipient. And a couple days ago when I was dropping someone off, the care recipient said, "I wish I could take you to lunch." and I said, when everything reopens, we are definitely going to lunch. So it's just been another level of connection that I've been privileged to be able to participate in. And in that van, there's a connection that happens during that half hour to and from Bremerton or Silverdale that is a real treat for me to hear about people's lives, people whom I never would have met otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. So many of you have spoken to that these are folks that you didn't know before, and yet you feel like you've got this great connection with them now. And I know for myself, when I started working at IVC, I considered it, and I still do consider it, such a privilege to get to know people and hear their stories, because everybody has a story, and oftentimes the elderly are a little bit invisible in our society. So I think that all of you are doing such great work, and work is the wrong word because it's not work, but by listening to people and hearing what they have to say, and now more than ever, it's important. So is there before we end the call, is there anything else anybody would like to say?
I was going to say, this just adds on, but I'm struck by how grateful everybody is, how gracious and grateful. And, my reply is always, it's my pleasure, because it truly is. It is my pleasure to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would certainly agree with that. It's a real honor. It's a real pleasure to be able to be. We receive as much as they do oftentimes.
Yeah.
I think people always ask me about IVC, and they ask me about it more now because they know that we're still doing it. Like, they're like, "Oh, you're still doing that?" And I said, "Yeah, like we have to still be doing it, right? Like, these are people that are in need right now, like a lot of you have said." But what they always tell, when I describe to them, like, that anybody can do it, and it's very simple, it's well run, you can do it even if you don't have a lot of time, and like Paula, even if you travel, you can still do it.
I know that now.
Yeah. And so I think it's just for everybody in the community could participate. And what I love about it is that it's something very simple that has such a ripple effect. And it's not complicated. It's just simple. Just say yes. And like everybody here has said, you'll get so much back, but it's just a simple thing to do. And I think it really brings our community together. And it could be an example for a lot of communities. So I think you always write in your email that we're all just walking each other home.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that's the number one way to describe it.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate this.